Hello everyone, welcome to the All Day Football Show. I am your host, Jackson Kellogg, and today, for the first ever video on the All Day Football Show, we will be going over my NFL power rankings for before the season starts. So, this list, 32-1, is based off of how I felt the teams did in the offseason, mixed with how they did last season and how they project to play this season. So without further ado, the team that I feel will do the worst, or I think is the worst team in the league right now, is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mainly in point because they're just a destructive team right now. You can't tell if they're rebuilding or trying to have a good team. It's just such a weird mixture. I'm going to go with that they are rebuilding, though, with how many picks they're trying to get, but the picks are coming at a cost, They got 2 first-rounders and more, but it took trading away Jalen Ramsey, probably a top 3 corner in the league. They'll probably get a first-round pick from Ngakoue, but you're getting rid of that production. So it's a lot of giving and taking, but their big thing this year is going to be seeing if Gardner Minshew can be a franchise quarterback, and if he can, then maybe they'll do good this year, but I don't think they'll be competitive. If he isn't, well, they'll probably be close enough to being able to draft Trevor Lawrence. At 31, I have the Carolina Panthers. New head coaches usually don't mean good seasons. It takes a lot to have a good season as a first-year head coach. Look for the Browns to maybe be that team, but right now I'm looking at the Panthers to be trying to figure out what they've got. Teddy Bridgewater, coming off of 5-0 season with the Saints, replacing Drew Brees. So I don't think he'll be a franchise quarterback for them per se, but I think he'll be a good Bridgewater to who they want to bring in next. The defense took a hit this year, losing Luke Kuechly and James Bradbury, but I don't think this team is going to be very competitive, especially within that division. At number 30, I have the New York Giants. Joe Judge brought in as the head coach, former Patriots special teams coach. It's not very rare that you see a special teams coach made a head coach, so I think that's an odd hiring. But they did bring in Jason Garrett as the offensive coordinator, so we'll see how that works. We'll see if Daniel Jones can develop. They did bring in some new offensive linemen to help bolster that O-line that's always been atrocious. But the defense is going to be a big question mark. They don't have a ton of talent on that side, and any talent they do have, it has to develop. So the defense might look very bad this year, but the offense looks to make some strides in the right direction. At number 29, I have the Detroit Lions. Matt Patricia hasn't done the best job over there with a 9-22-1 record as a head coach. Part of that is because Stafford is such a carry for the team, and he went down last year for the first time in forever with an injury, and it showed what happens when he's not at the starting quarterback. So hopefully he can stay on the field this year, try to help carry that team, but the defense I don't think is going to do much favors either with how inconsistent it's been. At number 28, I have the Washington football team. The team did not do a very good job in trying to get Dwayne Haskins weapons. His best weapon right now is Terry McLaurin, and he was a 3rd-round pick in the draft last year. He did show good signs, though, both McLaurin and Dwayne Haskins, but not much else around them looks great. I mean, you've got the aging Adrian Peterson. They just had to release Darius Geis, who was going to be a promising running back, but, had to do some dumb stuff and get arrested for domestic violence. So, as long as the team can look past the distractions of stupidity from teammates or them trying to rebrand this team away from the Redskins, but I think Ron Rivera is a good coach to help them do that. The defense looks good. I just think they're not doing the best job to help Dwayne Haskins develop. At number 27, I have the New York Jets. In my opinion, Adam Gase should not be a head coach in the league. We saw what happened with the Dolphins when he was there. So many players who were there while he was a head coach with the Dolphins have left and shown that they are very good. Ryan Tannehill, Minka Fitzpatrick, Laramie Tunsil, so many players that were either got rid of or left, and they're just showing that Adam Gase did not help with his coaching. And I think that's a sign of disaster for Sam Darnold. He looks to have promise, but if they can't develop him, he's just going to be in the next line of busts at quarterback for the Jets. And with CJ Mosley opting out of the season, that defense looks to be in trouble, especially after trading Jamal Adams. I just don't see this team as very competitive this year, which does help my favorite team, the Patriots, in getting a playoff spot. But we'll get to that later. At number 26, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. What the Bengals are doing with Joe Burrow is great, and the Jets and the Washington football team should be taking notes on this. Joe Burrow is surrounded with so much talent. The only thing you could say about that offense is that the offensive line isn't the greatest, but they'll have time to get better. If this team can stay healthy and the defense can prove itself, and if Joe Burrow develops, they could be a very competitive team in the first year, but it's a lot of ifs right now, so we don't know if that'll happen, all of that, but they're in a good position for the future. So, but for now, they'll be lower on the list. At number 25, we have the Miami Dolphins. The big thing with the Dolphins is going to be how this team can get cohesive in their first year, especially with how the coronavirus has affected training camps. They might not have as much chemistry as some of these teams who have stayed together will have. So between that offensive line and the whole defense, there's going to be a lot of chemistry that needs to be found, and I don't know if they can do that in this short time. So I think this is a good chance for them to just throw Ryan Fitzpatrick in, let Tua learn from him, and if they lose games, it's not like it's going to be terrible. It's not like Brian Flores is going to lose his job. At number 24, very contradictory to a lot of stuff I've seen, I have the Colts. I am not on the Phillip Rivers Colts bandwagon. I saw a couple games last year of Rivers playing, and I thought he was going to retire at the end of this year because of how he was playing. Instead, he goes and signs a deal with the Colts. And do I think it was the best idea? No, not on either party. But I guess Phillip Rivers has to pay for those kids somehow. The defense does look really nice. They have a lot of young players on there. But that offense, I'm not all gung-ho on it yet. And you need an offense as much as you need a defense. So I don't think the Colts are going to be as good as everyone's talking about, but they'll still be a little competitive, especially with that division. At number 23, I have I was about to say San Diego. Los Angeles Chargers. That's how long I've been watching football. Anyways, the Chargers drafted Justin Herbert with the 6th overall pick. It'll be interesting to see who comes out of training camp, either him or Tyrod Taylor as the starter for week 1. Most likely it'll be Tyrod Taylor just because he's a veteran and he's got experience in the system. That team does look to have promise, but again, young quarterback that needs to develop, and I don't think Tyrod is going to be good enough to carry that team to a playoff spot. So they'll be decent this year, but don't look for them to be in battling for the 7th spot. At number 22, this is going to be a fun one, is the Chicago Bears. Trubisky versus Foles is like the battle of the decade. Trubisky, former 2nd overall pick, who went ahead of Patrick Mahomes, went ahead of Deshaun Watson. And the Bears traded up 1 spot to get him at the 2nd. They went from 3 to 2. And guess what it has done? Absolutely nothing. So who do they bring in to compete with him? Nick Foles, former Super Bowl MVP, sadly beating my Patriots. Then gets a big deal from the Jaguars, and gets injured and loses to the Minshew Mania. So what's this offense going to look like? Who knows, because they don't have very many weapons outside of Allen Robinson. David Montgomery might be good. The offensive line is starting to fall apart, though. And I don't think either of these quarterbacks are the answer for Chicago. But that defense is going to be good enough to where they're not going to be able to compete for a quarterback in the draft. So the Bears are in a rough spot for the next couple years. They got to hope Trubisky develops or Foles shows that he can be playoff Foles. But I don't know. I don't think the Bears are going to be very good this year either, aside from their defense. At number 21, I have the now Las Vegas Raiders. Didn't mess that one up. I don't know how Gruden has his job still, honestly. Between Gruden and Mike Mayock I don't even know. Like, watching the draft this past year, I was texting one of my friends who was also watching the draft, and, we were trying to call the picks, and we were doing pretty good until we got to the Raiders pick, and I figured they were going to take a receiver, and I was about to say, like, Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb, and then I go, wait, it's the Raiders. They're going to take Henry Ruggs, and guess what? They did. So I don't know how good Gruden is for this team, because Derek Carr is such an underrated quarterback. He did so well last year. Like, I jotted down a couple notes just for this point. Like, he had over 70% completion percentage, threw for over 4,000 yards, and had a 21-8 touchdown interception ratio. That's almost 3-1. That's a lot better than a bunch of other quarterbacks who are still starting. So Derek Carr isn't the issue with the Raiders. I think it's the coaching and the front office, because that team it's got a very good roster, but I don't think the coaching's there. To be honest, I don't think Gruden has earned that 10-year, $100 million contract. At number 20, we have the Atlanta Falcons. I honestly don't know how the Falcons haven't been such competitors the last 2 years. I think the big thing for them was just injury issues, but hopefully those have been solved this year for them. They do have a promising team. Their issue, I think, is they have a lot of talent that it's inconsistent. Like, they just brought on Todd Gurley, but who knows how he is with his knee. Matt Ryan had his glory days, but I think those are slowly starting to fade, even though he did play well last year. Maybe it's the coaching. Dan Quinn was almost sacked this year, but they're giving him one more shot. The big thing for the Falcons is going to be, can they stay healthy? And if they can, I think they'll be competing for a wild card spot. At number 19, we have the LA Rams. By the way, I think this logo is absolutely atrocious and ugly. I think the big issue for them is going to be they blew up the roster. They went for it all, and it didn't go well when they lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. So they blew up the roster. They don't have money to spend because it's all dead money. And now they've just got to figure out if Goff is worth the money. Because if he's not, I'd try to get rid of him as soon as possible, because you already don't have any money anyway. Might as well make it so that you'll have tons of money in the future. Sean McVay is a good coach, but I don't see him working any magic on this team this season. They've got Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Michael Brockers, who was about to leave, but something happened there. And they don't have a ton of talent. So, outside of that, Jared Goff's got Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods to work with, but they traded away Brandon Cooks. So, they've got a lot that they have to figure out this season. I don't know if it ends in a playoff push for them. At number 18, I have the Denver Broncos. I'm on the Drew Lock bandwagon. Well, I wouldn't say bandwagon. I'm rooting for him this season. The Broncos haven't had a good quarterback since Peyton Manning, and it was even longer before him. They've been looking for that player to replace him, and I think they have it in Drew Lock. They've got a young roster with proven talent as veterans between Von Miller. They traded for A.J. Bouye. Like, the proven veterans on that team are really good, and they have a lot of young players who have the chance to be all-stars. So as long as Fangio can do some good coaching, I think this team is going to be a good competitor for the Chiefs in the next couple years. At number 17, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. I want them to be lower on this list, but that defense is just too good to put them lower. I think they're a little overhyped, but I think a lot of it is Mike Tomlin is such a good coach that he was able to figure it out. Roethlisberger is getting older. Is his arm healthy? Is he going to be able to throw? Those are questions that the Steelers should be asking themselves. That offense is going to be interesting, though, because a lot of players are battling for positions. Like, outside of Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, James Washington, and who did they just draft? I think that was Chase Claypool. Sorry. Those three are going to be battling for that wide receiver 2 and 3 spot. James Conner might lose his spot to Jalen Samuels or Benny Snell. They've just got a lot of battle positions on the offense, and if Roethlisberger with his age goes down again, I don't think Duck Hodges or Mason Rudolph are going to be able to save him this year. Halfway through, at number 16, I have the Minnesota Vikings. The reason they're so low on this list is because they blew up that defense. Other than Stephon Diggs on offense, that side of the ball is still intact fairly well. But that defense has a brand new secondary. It has a ton of players. They brought in Michael Pierce from the Ravens, and then he opted out. Like, they've just got a whole new defense that Mike Zimmer is going to have to work with. And for the Vikings to be competitive this year, they're going to have to rely on Kirk Cousins to be able to throw the ball. And I don't know how well he'll be able to do that. If the Vikings don't make the playoffs this year, I wouldn't be surprised if they see Cousins moving on. At number 15, I have the Cleveland Browns. I have been on the Browns bandwagon, I believe, for the last 3 years. I think since they had that Hard Knocks season. So this is my 3rd year rooting for the Browns to make the playoffs, and I think this is finally their year. They have a better head coach in Kevin Stefanski, so if Mayfield sucks this year, there's no excuse for him. That defense looks great outside maybe. Their linebacking core is a little young, but I think this team is going to finally make the playoffs, and I'm hoping they do. At number 14, we have the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I've talked about a couple different teams that have good defenses, but we don't know how their offense is going to be. This is the complete opposite. This offense looks absolutely stacked. Like, their weakest spot, probably the offensive line still. Kenyon Drake has shown great promise since being traded to the Cardinals. That's why they transition tagged him. Kyler Murray looks like a beast. They just got DeAndre Hopkins for nothing, and they paired him with Larry Fitzgerald, one of the greatest receivers in his time, and Christian Kirk, who has been a great receiver for the Cardinals as well. The amount of 3-4 wide receiver formations this team is going to run, and teams aren't going to be able to stop it, is going to be amazing. You look at some of these teams that don't have more than 2 good cornerbacks, like the Vikings in their division, and the Rams Vikings in the same conference, Rams in the division, Seahawks in the division. 49ers will do a little bit better, but like, the Cardinals are going to be running up the score on some teams. But the only issue with that is that the defense might other than Chandler Jones and Patrick Peterson, maybe a little bit from Budda Baker, isn't nearly as consistent. So they'll need a lot of play from a lot of good players on that defense to keep it okay. But I think we're going to see what the air raid offense can do with the Cardinals. At number 13, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. I am not a Wentz fan. I think Wentz has talent, but he's a stick. He breaks. And I don't think the last time he played a full season was when it was his rookie year, I think. And based how the Eagles were last year, they've got less this year. I don't think the Eagles team will do good if Wentz goes down this year. Now, if Wentz can stay healthy along with the entire roster this year, then maybe they'll compete for a wild card spot, because I don't think they're better than the Cowboys, obviously, by this ranking. But like, that secondary needs some work. Those linebackers need some work. The O-line is probably one of the best ones in the league, but still, like, they need to get past these injuries and then be competitive. At number 12, I have the Tennessee Titans. I'm a little confused with how the Titans will do this year. On one hand, I think they'll be really competitive. I think they'll compete with the Texans for the top of the division. On the other hand, I feel like they're just a one-year wonder and they're going to bust this year. I don't know if Tannehill is all that. They paid both Tannehill and Derrick Henry, so who knows how that's going to go. Like, I just don't know if they're going to be really good or really bad. I feel like there is no in-between. We've seen what happens when running backs get paid. I don't remember the last running back to do well after getting paid, except, no, Christian McCaffrey got his contract this offseason, yeah. So I don't remember the last running back to do well after getting paid. So we'll see how that goes, but either way, Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill are going to have to do really well along with A.J. Brown to keep that offense and the whole team going. At number 11, we have the Houston Texans. I do not know how Bill O'Brien still has a job. He should have been fired on spot after that DeAndre Hopkins trade. And then he tries to make up for it for trading for Brandon Cooks. As much as I like Brandon Cooks is not DeAndre Hopkins. So I feel bad for Deshaun Watson. I think he should get out of there because that's just a terrible situation. Other than that, though, I think Deshaun Watson's going to be an MVP candidate this year because of how much he's going to have to carry that team. That defense looks inconsistent, especially in the secondary. Deshaun Watson is going to be between him. All right, I'm going to say this right now. Calling it right now. Deshaun Watson will be MVP this season if it happens. Calling it. But other than that, this Texans team is going to be, they'll be good, but they won't be as good as they could be. At number 10, I have the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills season relies solely on Josh Allen. That defense looks great. Looks like a top 5 defense. They brought in Stephon Diggs to pair with Cole Beasley and John Brown after last season. And Devin Singletary looks like he's going to be a good running back. This season relies on Josh Allen. If Josh Allen is his inconsistent self, then we're going to see a similar Buffalo Bills team to last year. And if not, maybe even a little worse. If Josh Allen is more consistent, the Bills are going to be a scary team this season. But I have them behind the Patriots in the sole fact that Sean McDermott is a good coach, but he's not a Bill Belichick type coach, and because Allen is inconsistent. And I think the defense is a little below in terms of ranking on that end. But to lead up to that, I have my Patriots at the number 9 spot. The quarterback battle is going to be interesting between Cam Newton and Jarrett Stidham. The coaches are high on Stidham and the fans are high on Cam Newton. So we'll see who comes out of that battle. I think the receivers will be a little bit better this year because I hated seeing stuff saying that the Pats receivers were terrible, or the receiving core is terrible, because Brady wasn't the type of quarterback to throw contested catches, which is what N'Keal Harry does. He didn't throw it deep all the time because he's getting older. Can't do it all the time like Patrick Mahomes, which kept Philip Dorsett from doing anything. And Mohamed Sanu got injured in his first game with the Patriots. So you can't blame them for having a bad season last year. So I think the receivers will do better this year. The big question mark will be how much the opt-outs affected the Patriots. They had 8 total opt-outs, except though 3 of them were starters. But those 3 starters were very important starters: Dante Hightower, Patrick Chung, and Marcus Cannon. But what that does is it allows for younger players to get the chance to prove themselves. Like Patrick Chung opted out, but now Kyle Duggar, who we drafted in the second round, has a chance to play. Dante Hightower opted out, but now that allows Jawan Bentley to be the best, or the top middle linebacker, and let Josh Uche and Anthony Jennings develop behind him as well. And then Marcus Cannon opted out, so that allows players like Yadni Kajust and I believe it was Justin Herron, who we drafted this year, to battle for that tackle spot. So there will be a lot of chances for younger players to prove their worth on this team. And I think they'll still be good because the Emperor is still the head coach. At number 8, I have the Dallas Cowboys. Dak should have gotten paid, I think, but I don't think Dak is going to spend his whole career in Dallas based off of how those contract disputes are going. I feel like he's going to be the next Kirk Cousins, and where he gets franchise tagged another year and then he's gone. So Mike McCarthy's probably got a couple years to send this team to the Super Bowl, and he's got a good roster too. Other than the secondary, there are very few holes on this team, and the offense looks very good. So if he can be old Mike McCarthy with Rodgers back in the early 2010s, this team will be very good, I think. And if it's not, then McCarthy's back to recent Mike McCarthy with the Packers, where he got fired. At number 7, I have the Seahawks. Russell Wilson is going to have to also help carry this team. Not because of the offense. The offense looks great, except maybe some O-line issues. But that defense is going to be very interesting. They have absolutely no pass rush at all at this moment. There have been talks that they'll sign Clay Matthews or Everson Griffin, but no Jadeveon Clowney talk. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. But other than that, their top pass rusher right now is their former first-round pick, L.J. Collier, who did absolutely nothing in his first year. So as of right now, he's looking like a bust. But the Seahawks will still be competitive in that division, in that conference, and they'll still most likely make the playoffs. At number 6, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It pains me to do this because I know 2 of their best players right now, especially on that offense, are former Patriots. I was okay with Brady leaving because I knew it was time to go. But it killed me when I saw that Gronk wanted to return but get traded to go play with Brady. That was more painful for me to see than Brady leaving. But if Brady plays well like he has the last couple years in his 40s, that offense will be great, especially because he has more talented wide receivers than he did with the Patriots. The coaching will be different. One stat I did see that interested me was that Bruce Arians led teams' first-year quarterbacks did not perform very well. You look at Jameis Winston went 30 for 30 in his touchdown-interception ratio. So, and then when Bruce Arians first joined the Cardinals in Carson Palmer's first year, that didn't go very well. I don't have exact stats on that. But, so either the Buccaneers will be really good or really bad. And the defense needs to be consistent in order to help them be very good. At number 5, I have the Packers. This is going to be an interesting battle between Rodgers and management because Rodgers is probably gone after this year, but it's going to be a big, guess you shouldn't have drafted Jordan Love when he shows out this year and leaves. Because then it'll be LaFleur and Jordan Love. I have a feeling Rodgers is just going to go out and he's going to not care what happens this year. He's going to try and show that he's really good, but he's not going to, bank his entire career on this season. Because he's probably going to be preparing to join another team here soon. But also help develop Jordan Love at the same time, because it's not his fault that Jordan Love was drafted into this situation. But other than that, the Packers have a really nice roster. It's a shame that they lost in the NFC Championship. You never want to be the team that loses in the conference championship game. But they'll look to be competing for that spot again. At number 4, I have the Baltimore Ravens. This team got better. But my only issue is, now, I'm big for theories and whatnot, as you might see. But Lamar Jackson was made the cover of Madden 21. And everyone says, oh, the Madden curse finished with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes got injured. But everyone forgets that last season. Patrick Mahomes got injured, and because he's Patrick Mahomes, came back after a couple games and went on to win the Super Bowl. Can Lamar Jackson do the same thing? I don't think so. The Ravens are here now, but I have a feeling that I'll be dropping the Ravens at some point this season. If Lamar Jackson avoids the Madden curse, which nobody has except for Larry Fitzgerald, then they'll be really good and probably number 2 in the AFC at the end of all this. Now we're into my top 3, and you could guess them right now, but we'll just go into them. At number 3, I have the San Francisco 49ers. I think they'll be very good this year despite chances of a Super Bowl hangover. Their roster is too talented to be able to let that happen. That defense looks like a top defense yet again this year. That'll be led by Nick Bosa and Richard Sherman. And I think that the offense will just complement it. Their offense is a different type of style than a lot of teams right now. They're going with a more running back by committee approach with passing attack thrown in there. It's different, and it allows them to be able to work with different players to do well. And I think that it'll allow them to keep up with the rest of the conference for the next couple years, at least with Jimmy Garoppolo. At number 2, I have the New Orleans Saints. I believe this is the best roster in the league right now. They only had, maybe 1 or 2 holes that they had to fill. They needed a wide receiver 2, and they needed to get a little bit better in the secondary, and they did both. They are the most complete team in the league, and I can't really find very many holes on this roster. And that's just scary. And I think this will be Drew Brees' last season. He's going to go on a run and see what he can do in his final season. And I think that's going to lead him to a Super Bowl matchup with the team I have next. But as long as Brees can avoid being bad in 40 and follow Tom Brady's footsteps and play well in his 40s, I think the Saints will be a very good competitor and beat out the Buccaneers in the division. At number 1, I do have the current Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is going to be the next face of the league after Brady. He kind of is now, but when Brady retires, it'll be Patrick Mahomes' turn to be the face of the NFL, even though they're already transitioning now, especially after Brady left the Patriots. But another very complete team. I saw a stat for the Chiefs that of their 53 players last year, they only lost 2. Like, they brought back almost the entire team, and they did have some bad opt-outs with Damian Williams opting out and Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, I think is how you say his name. He was the first player to opt out as a doctor. But even with that, they signed Kelchi Osemele, I think, to replace their guard, and they drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And he'll probably take more snaps with Damian Williams opting out. But again, I think the Chiefs are going to be the face of the league for at least the next couple years, but they might run into some cap trouble after that, after paying a lot of players. I don't think Andy Reid is as good at convincing players as Belichick is to take less money. I think Sammy Watkins might be one of the few. It'll be interesting to see how that goes, but right now my Super Bowl matchup is Saints-Chiefs, and it shows with this power ranking. This is what I have for before the season starts. Again, if the season starts, which I'm hoping it does, I'll do these weekly and update them, move teams around, see how they do. But anyways, for now, that is all. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.